Hello, Seiiti Arata. There are two layers in any situation of suffering. There is what happens in the world in the objective way. That is, whatever it is that any independent observer can see and come to the same conclusion. And then there is the suffering that only exists in your mind. For example, your car was parked on the street last night, and then this morning the car is no longer there. It was probably stolen or totaled. One thing for sure that everyone can objectively agree on is that the car is no longer there. Another situation, you tripped over the stairs and then you broke your leg. Everyone will objectively agree, seeing you, that you had an accident and now you have a cast, and the results of the X-ray exams, you broke your leg. That is the objective layer. Now, the second layer is the interpretation, the judgment that is in your head. This second layer depends on you, on your interpretation of the objective facts. So this is a subjective layer. And most of the human suffering is precisely in this subjective layer, in the story you tell yourself. Suffering is blaming yourself for recklessly parking your car on the street, and you should be more careful when you're going down the stairs. To suffer is to become very angry at the lack of security on the street. Angry at the stairs for not having a handrail for you to be holding during a fall. These are all stories that you tell inside your head and that other people may or may not agree with. The solution to suffering is inside your head. If most of the problem of suffering is in our mind, unwanted objective situations can make you angry, afraid, sad. You can see these situations as valuable opportunities for you to practice your patience, your emotional control, your conscience. Each unpleasant situation is a chance for you to train the transformation of your mind. When unwanted things happen, you can do whatever it is to remedy and to prevent it from happening again, but at the same time realize that there will be very little use to be angry, to be losing your temper, making a fuss, feeling remorse, guilt, and suffering. A good way to train your mind for this transformation is to view life in two different areas or domains. The first area is the external world of the objective facts. We have very little control over the outside world. Now, the second field is the internal world, the way I interpret the objective facts. And the good news is that we can control better this internal world. Unhappiness occurs when I condition my happiness to factors that are external and that I cannot control. Happiness is not lasting when it depends on external facts. We have a very bad habit of conditioning our happiness to the achievement of external goals. When I finish high school, then I'll be happy. When I graduate from college, then I'll be happy. When I get a job, when I get a salary raise, when I get married, when I buy a house, when I have children, when I retire. And so life goes on, and we always condition our happiness to this future uncertain event. Now, the problem is that whenever we achieve any of these goals, happiness is fleeting. Soon we set another goal and we restart an endless cycle of suffering. And it doesn't have to be that way. Happiness is in your mind, not in external goals. We can work on our internal sense of gratitude while we are pursuing our goals. We can be thankful for what we have and still seek new goals, as long as this is done with detachment, always trying to interpret the external facts in the most favorable way that is possible for our happiness. Now, you don't have to stop having desires or seeking results. However, avoid attachment to desires, attachment to results. You can dream big. Even when you have a very big goal, the less attached you are, the less you suffer. For example, I dream about having a sculptural body, but I have morbid obesity. So the distance is enormous. But I know how to accept the reality of the present moment. I'm doing what I can do. I love myself, so I'm not attached and I will not suffer. On the other hand, see, if I wish things were just a little bit different, if I am attached to that desire, I will suffer. I may already have a sculptural body that causes envy in everyone around me, but if my body fat index is 9%, I would like it to be 8%. And if I am attached to this result, this could make me suffer. Do you understand? In these examples, suffering is not about the greater or lesser amount of transformation that is needed. It is not about the distance between my aspirations and my current results. It is not about How much do I still have to do to achieve my dream? Suffering has to do with my attachment. We can have all the dreams in the world and be very ambitious, but we must be careful not to be trapped by our dreams and condition our happiness to those desires. I want to be at the place where I am, with what I have. This might seem like conformism, but it's not. It is a way of knowing how to deal with reality, and thus to be happy. You hardly find suffering in a present moment. If we were able to pay attention only to the objective world, our lives will have very few moments of suffering. Now, please, don't confuse pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Considering that you are a person who has your basic needs for food and housing and health met, it is more likely that your objective life has very few moments of suffering. The problem is that we don't just focus on the objective world at the present moment. Our mind is always wandering to other moments, remembering a past with everything that could have been and that was not, or imagining a perfect future so full of conditions that it will never actually happen. You can now begin to control your mind and focus on the present moment, and it is quite simple. You just have to really want it. This happens with a simple observation of what exists in the now. Think about chronic health problems or physical pain. There is an inevitable layer of pain, which is the pain, the disease itself, and there's an optional suffering layer in the self-criticism, the lack of acceptance for having that pain or that disease. When you're sick, you can simply observe what has happened and seek to remedy what is possible. Of course, pain is not pleasant, but it is inevitable. It is part of a life whose elements we don't have full control over. The problem is that we often create an optional second layer of suffering in our mind. If I think that this situation is unfair, if I get angry, I'll feel guilty. I wonder, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? We have to identify ourselves with this suffering, and this suffering often ends up greater than the pain or the illness itself. Worse than having a back pain, for example, is to blame yourself for trying to carry that heavy box without asking for help or being angry at your own body. And this is not only true for pain and illness. In everything in our life, there is the layer of what happens and the layer of how I interpret what happens. The second layer is mental. It only depends on me, exclusively on me. And you are not your mind. Another good way to lessen your mental suffering is to understand that you are not your mind, you're not your thoughts. When something bad happens and we interpret it in a way that causes us more suffering, we can end up identifying ourselves with our own mind. A metaphor can help you to understand this identification between you and your mind. Think of your mind as a busy road where thousands of cars go by all the time. When we identify some thought, it is as if we try to grab one of those cars and we end up being dragged whatever it is that the car is going. And you can increase your happiness levels if you don't try to grab any of those cars, if you don't get attached to these thoughts. Instead, think of yourself as an observer at the edge of this very busy road. You look closely at each car, but you don't cling to any of them, and as a consequence, you're also not dragged. You are not the thoughts that are in your mind. You are the person who observes these thoughts. Every subjective suffering you will face is a mental process that you can let go. You don't need to identify yourself with these thoughts. Transforming your mind means changing your relationship with your thoughts, with your emotions, your feelings, the images in your head. This is how changes in the objective life will arise. Mindfulness is realizing the present moment. In recent times, the term mindfulness has gained increasing importance. The expression mindfulness means being mindful of what you're doing in the present moment without being distracted by the ramblings of your mind or even external stimuli. You act consciously, aware of what you're doing. For example, if you're walking, you might be either aware of your movements or you might be distracted in a world of fantasies created by your mind. And then when you return home, you don't even know exactly where you have been, what you saw, how you moved, especially how it all felt. Mindfulness helps to regulate our attention to the immediate experience and not on the autopilot. So we put our attention in the now, we experience the moment as it is. Every event contributes to the person you are today. Your story is what makes you who you are today. It is also because of pain and failure and disappointment and even abuse that you are the person you are today. So my growth is based on my indignation. My values exist because of what I don't agree with or what happened to me in the past. When I experience things that I don't like, I develop an aspiration for something better. And it happens from that pain. So if you're going to blame your past for your pain, you have also to blame it for the success you have. But remember, your past does not determine your future. Don't be sorry for your past. Don't justify failures in the past. Learn from it. Use the pain of the past as a way to build your better future. Observe what is in your mind without reacting, without judging. Just watch the cars passing by on the side of the road without judging. If you catch yourself in the act of trying to cling to one of these cars, just be aware of how bad this attachment is, how it increases your suffering and decreases your levels of happiness. Unlike the external world, over which you have very little control, in the internal world, you have feelings that you can control. You can improve the way you deal with emotions. Just realize the present moment without judging or evaluating. This is a choice that you can make now. Most of the problems we face come up on our minds, and therefore the solution to the same problems involves the transformation of the mind. External facts over which we have very little control should not be a condition for our happiness. To increase your happiness levels, learn to tame the way you interpret these external facts, trying to focus more and more on the present moment with mindfulness. Remember that you are not your thoughts and that all events contribute to the person you are today. If you want access to the guided activities to increase your happiness, Arata Academy now has a positive psychology course focused on increasing your happiness levels. It is the happiness course. To learn more about this new course, you can go now to arata.se/happiness.